Your biggest risk if you're in the private fund sector are your partners. Second biggest risk are your employees. Third biggest risk could be your customers. Often before they hire lawyers, they're communicating with prospective investors, not realizing that that can come back to haunt them. It's governed by law.
Hello and welcome to the Attorney Post, where we give you the inside scoop with top attorneys in their field. And now, here's our host, Justin West.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Attorney Post, where we discuss what's going on in various facets of the law with attorneys at the top of their game. Today, I am very pleased to be joined by Ron Geffner. We've actually had a wonderful pre-roll discussion. We've been talking for almost 20 minutes here, and I was like, we should probably get this thing started so we can be respectful of each other's time. But it's been a wonderful conversation so far. So I'm really looking forward to speaking with him. He is a founding partner over at Sadis Goldberg in New York City. How are you doing today, Ron?
Couldn't be any better.
Well, that's about as good as you can ask for. My goodness. Before we begin, we're going to jump over and actually take a look. So this is Sadis Goldberg's website. That is SADIS.com, sadis.com. And they are a full-service legal firm servicing hedge funds, and they do everything. We're going to dive into all the stuff that they do, financial services, SEC filings, and all sorts of things. So we're going to dive into all the things that Ron spearheads over there. But if you are in one of the higher levels of business, I think that they would be a wonderful resource for you. And it looks like they have a lot of other things they might do as well. They do real estate. They do obviously litigation, arbitration. I'm assuming probably things like mergers and acquisitions.
We're doing corporate and M&A, tax analysis, ERISA. The litigation is very, very active, from securities litigation to business divorces.
Very
regulatory
cool.
and compliance, very strong in the financial services industry, which is where I hail from.
And that's actually what I was going to say, is we're going to mostly focus on the financial stuff. So that'll be what we're talking about today with Ron. And again, if you want to visit their website, we'll have a link down below in the description, but that is sadis.com, SADIS.com. Before we begin, as always, we're going to jump over and read from a couple of sponsors. And today on the show, we have SearchSift. And we're going to do something different today. I started doing this at the request of the company. Oh, there's Ron again. Very handsome looking fellow, by the way. Can I just say?
Very, very kind.
Great. I love that suit. That's a good looking suit. And you look like you work out. I don't know if that's just the posturing of the suit or not, but you look like a handsome fella.
Touch and go. Touch and go.
Touch and go.
Right now I have been working out, but yes.
Very good. So our first sponsor today is SearchSift. Quick question. When somebody searches for a lawyer or a business in your market, are you showing up or are you just sort of there? Are you using services like pay-per-click to get in front of people? And if so, are you just paying to stay in the game, or are they turning into leads? Google Ads is an auction. So is SEO at the end of the day. And most firms and businesses are bidding to get onto page one. But what you need to be doing is getting there even before anyone clicks. Google's already suggesting what people should search next, and that's where SearchSift comes in. SearchSift helps position your firm or your business inside of the predictive searches. So instead of just competing for attention, you're actually influencing the search even before the search has finished. And here's the kicker. With SearchSift, you don't pay to rank. You only pay when somebody clicks. So instead of paying overpriced for the same leads and traffic in front from sites like Google, you can actually get in front of the decision makers earlier. Visit SearchSift, that's SYFT, searchsift.com to learn more. And they actually requested that we do a live demonstration. So if you don't mind, Ron, I'm going to use you guys as an example just because
I don't mind, and I want to actually contact them, but keep going.
Very cool. So if you needed someone that did ERISA law and you're in New York and you did a search, we're just going to do this live right now. You'll see there are ads up here. These are probably $200 to $300 per click for those ads, because legal ads are just stupidly expensive. And then you'll see there's a bunch of things. There's an AI overview talking about various aspects of overviews and everything else. There's more ads in the middle, and you'll see a handful of law firms. I don't want to state whether I do or not, but I don't see you guys on page one right now. So for a lot of firms, there's only a handful of places on page one. What SearchSift does is something like this. As somebody is typing in, you will see that Google makes suggestions like the Wagner and Wagner firm, let's say, and it makes other suggestions as well. But what SearchSift does is it gets Google to do something like this.
Hey, how about you instead, you want to do New York City hedge fund?
We can certainly do that. I'll show this one really quickly. So we do New York State ERISA law firm, and all of a sudden, you guys are the only thing on page one. So you said New York City hedge fund?
Or New York hedge fund. So whatever you want to do. I'm really curious.
Hedge fund law firm.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
Yeah, we're number
So
two, right under sewer.
hey, there you guys are. You are in the AI overview, which is good. And let's see here. I don't see it in the maps pack, but that's okay. But yeah, you guys have definitely done some work. You guys are a well-known name there, and that's really good. There's a lot of other places on page one, but what SearchShift does is it gets Google to do this. Sadis and Goldberg. And now all of a sudden, you guys become the only thing on page one. People are greeted by your beautiful reviews, and you basically, it looks like you are being recommended by Google. So that's what SearchShift does. And I'm starting to do this with every client or every guest we have on the call, just so they can see what it looks like and give a live example to people out there. But if you guys do a search and you find Sadis, you will see they've got some great reviews. People do like to work with them. I was actually reading a couple of the reviews earlier. They're very, very good, very glowing reviews. But that's the concept behind SearchShift. And again, they don't actually charge you to even get into the rankings, which is really kind of neat. So that's a little bit longer than I meant to spend on this particular sponsor, but it's a neat concept. I really like working with them. So that's SearchShift, SYFT, searchshift.com. And then, you know what? I'll save the other two because that was a longer read. We'll save the other two for the bottom of the hour and we'll come back over here. So jumping back over to your website. Today, I am again joined with Ron Geffner, who is again one of the founding partners at Sadis Goldberg LLP. He's the head of the firm's financial service group. Ron's practice sits at the intersection of investment funds, security regulations, enforcements, compliance, and business realities of launching and running funds. He began his career at the SEC, where he investigated and prosecuted federal security law violations. And today he advises hedge funds, private equity funds, venture capital funds, investment advisors, broker-dealers, family offices, and other financial industry clients. Ron has also become a frequent media voice on securities and investment fund issues, appearing or being quoted repeatedly in outlets from CNBC and Bloomberg to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Reuters, and the Financial Times. I could probably talk for hours giving an introduction to this guy because his bona fides are just great. He has done a lot, but I don't think I could ever even begin to scrape the bottom of the barrel or get to him. So my very first question to you, Ron, is simply this. What did I miss? Tell me what makes you tick. Tell me what makes you you. What are the idiosyncrasies that drive Ron Geffner?
Great question.
Know thyself.
And in my head, I thought you were going, what makes a really good lawyer? But
We'll get there.
I think what really drives me and separates me from many other people is I have a lot of heart. So I'm usually all in on things in the sense that I have empathy. I hear a lot of stories. I meet a lot of people. I feel their energy. I have a certain unique energy as well, right? We all do. And it's about connecting with people. And whether it's as a lawyer, right? Even why we had a 20-minute conversation before we got on this, talking about where you live and where I live and a little bit about life. It's always funny. It makes me think of the movie Legally Blonde, where the dean, I can't think of the actress's name other than I know her from Two and a Half Men.
With Witherspoon.
But Reese Witherspoon was the main actress, but the woman who played the dean or the professor, she's Charlie's mother from Two and a Half Men. But she basically talks about the law isn't just a cold, non-human things. It's really about the humanity of things too. Every job to some degree is, but people often lose insight of that, and that our clients are people. You're a person, and I mean that in the most important sense. That it is not just about me. What we're going through here is something we're all going through together. We might have our own perspective. We certainly have our own perspective, and most of us have a certain sense of me first, and that's okay. It's okay to the degree it doesn't drown out the other person. So what differentiates me as a person? I'm curious. I am caring. I give a shit. Right there, that separates me from a lot of other people. And I'm evolving, I think, differently than many of my other friends have done in the past, in the sense that my eyes got opened, I think, in my mid-30s. And it goes back to the curious nature of, look, I just want to be happy. At the end of the day, that's my goal. And so there's no one way, and it's a state of mind, right? And then it's potentially helping others and influencing them. And I'm not just talking as a lawyer. If I hear a friend is going through a divorce, I try and call them once a week, even if it's not a good friend, because it's a lonely experience. There's a health issue. I make sure to reinforce that they know that I'm praying for them. My children, and I have three older children, 30-year-old twins and a 26-year-old, and that being a parent is an evolutionary process. Right, you're in your mid-40s, so how you parent has changed over the last 10 plus years. And like my children I'm really close to them. I love them. They're my best friends, along with my significant other. And they're humans. And it's trying to remember their path and what they've gone through. And it's not just being altruistic by doing it. I can look at it in a selfish way in the sense that I learn from my kids all the time. I improve as a person. So it goes back to at least one of your majors in philosophy. It's a mindset. And I want to make the world a better place. I start by hopefully making myself better. But if I can focus on how do I improve as a person, and I give to people that seem to appreciate it, then I've already accomplished something that matters, right? Change one person's attitude. Who knows? Hopefully they change another person. That changes another person. There's a domino effect.
Yeah, the ripple.
And quite frankly, that sort of lends itself to why I founded Sadis. I didn't like where I was in the world. I was 30 years old. I questioned whether I wanted to practice law at that point. There weren't bad people. I felt there were bad people at the time. But when I look back, they were just caught up in their own world. And I think they didn't have empathy on how to communicate with others, whether it was good information or bad information, right? Whether they had to say something nice or not. But it's leaving people with dignity. And doesn't mean you have to agree. So it's more of a mindset. And every time I think I'm about to, so I'm going towards what I perceive as Zen. Now, to me, it's an unattainable state of mind to sustain it. I cannot sustain it because I live in the real world and I'm dealing with conflict and I'm human and I have fear and I have other frailties that every human being has. So I'd like to think I answered your question probably differently than most other people you've asked that question of, because I can even see your energy just change to a more kind and thoughtful and sensitive energy just while I responded to you.
No, absolutely. I asked the question because I just want to know who you are and what makes you tick. And for some people, it's, they tell me explicitly about their family. Some people are like, I'm an avid hiker. Some people are, I founded this firm to make a difference in the world. And what I really care about is just who you are. And the whole purpose of this podcast is to get to know you and let people who find you through the podcast get to know you. Obviously, you actually have a podcast as well. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well.
Sure.
But I mean, that's the, moving the mask and just getting to know you. And you definitely have a candor about you that a lot of my guests don't have. I think we all have a professional persona that we put on and whatnot. I mean, I do. I'm hosting this podcast. So I try to be as professional as I can. But no, I think it was a wonderful answer. I really do appreciate that. There was a lot of wisdom and some insight in that. So we'll bring this back to being professional though.
Yeah. Okay.
Tell me about, and I said Sadis earlier, it's Sadis apparently. So I apologize. I think it was named after
Tomato, potato,
former
potato.
partner. There you go. That's fair. Tell me about your firm. Give me a pitch. If I didn't know who you were or I didn't know what you do, tell me who you really help. Where do your clients come from? Why do they find you guys and why do they choose to work with you?
So, and there's no one answer that satisfies your question with regard to why people choose us. But I was a few minutes late to the podcast. There is a person who was a partner of an accounting firm who got to know me through professional channels, but we became friendly as people. And she referred over a client to me that happens to be somebody she's very, very close to, because I think in part she gets a sense of my bedside manner and that I'm available probably more than I should be, but more than most people. I respond to all emails and texts same day, no matter what's going on in my life. So accessibility is one. Two, scope of knowledge. I believe as you said earlier, with some of the accolades and my experience, I have significant experience in the area that I practice. Having started my career at the SEC, having gone and worked at one or two other firms prior to founding Sadis, and we launch over 80 funds a year. We're routinely ranked in the top 5 in the United States in representing hedge funds, but we're equally active in private equity, venture capital, real estate funds. But let's go to the third thing. And the common theme that I hear from people is that they really appreciate my business perspective. There are not that many lawyers you can call in my field that have started and are running their own business. And most people that you have, there's 2 markets in the private fund sector. There are what we'll call emerging managers and institutional clients. So what I'm going to share with you now really more appeals to the emerging manager. And while there's other value adds to the institutional client, this component's far more relatable to the many emerging managers. I'm hiring somebody who's also launched a business. I know what it's like, and I did this, and I'm not exaggerating, for like 15 years, because I started the firm when I was 30. I'm turning 60 in 2 weeks, and I was in at like 7:30 in the morning, going home at 10 or 11 at night, 5 days a week, and still working weekends. It's that empathy of, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm freaked out about everything. I don't even know what I don't know. And to understand that emotional state of mind and to be able to guide the person is really powerful. Client of mine, former client of mine, for no bad reason. I remember I was going to play cards with a bunch of the husbands back in the day. And I'm on the porch about to walk in the house, and my phone rings. And it's this guy who I have his name in mind. And he's just somebody, I always liked him. He was just real. There was no false bravado, and there was transparency to it. And he was literally contemplating suicide.
Oh.
And I'm sitting on the porch of a friend's house for over an hour. And I felt that I finally calmed this person down. And he went downstairs, and there was why you late? And I catch grief from everybody. But that's the difference. And I see it again and again. And one of the really things that's interesting, given some of the other prior explanations you shared with prior guests on the podcast as to why they founded their business. But my girlfriend goes to me to various industry events. And one of the things I've learned since I've been in this relationship, as she's gotten to know people that have known me in my industry, many of them have shared stories with her about how I've influenced their lives for the better. They didn't know it, wouldn't have thought it. And it like, honestly brought like tears to my eyes. Like, how amazing of a gift to be alive and to have people think of you in a way where you've touched them. You've touched them in a meaningful way that has changed their life trajectory. And lawyers do that all the time. I get it. But they do it more in the context of the specific scope of the work that they are doing, as opposed to trying to have a baby. You're not happy in your marriage. You're freaked out about money. I had a close friend thought he had a 50% chance of living 5 years. Like, it's just have compassion. And we talk about the world changing. We're living in a world now where having mutual respect and tolerance for one another and empathy and compassion, those seem to be like descriptors of a science fiction novel these days. And so it's also learning how I used to think I was a victim in a lot of situations. Like when I first negotiated my arrangement with my partners, I genuinely mean this. The guys I found in the firm with, I love. They are like brothers to me, and I've been working with them for 30 years. But at the time, 30 and 40, there was things I wasn't happy with in my life. Learning that I'm not the victim, that I have a hand in the outcome in everything I do, and then teaching others that you all have dominion over your emotions, and helping them feel better about themselves. Not because I'm laying on something thick that isn't true, but really teaching them that they're empowered. So anyway, those are some of the things that make me tick, and then with the firm.
Oh, that's awesome. If this whole lawyering thing doesn't work out, you're young still. You could go into personal development and coaching, apparently, because my goodness, you've got the skill. Let me just say, we did mention the suicide word. That is a trigger on YouTube, and so because of that, I always want to say, if you or somebody you know is struggling, help is available. Please call 988, which is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, if you or someone you know is contemplating self-harm like that. So I always throw that out there because that's just making sure that all the bases are covered, and that if somebody needs to hear that, they know that. And maybe you didn't know that that's a number. It's like 911, only it's 988. It's right next to each other on the phone, 988, and it'll connect you with the suicide hotline. I think it's a wonderful service that is provided. So please feel free to call that, at least here in the United States. I think it's a different number in other places, but here in the States, that's what it is. But thank you for sharing that as well. Let's see here.
But
Sorry.
point is, I really genuinely care about a lot of my clients.
Yeah.
Like, there's a client I have in Chicago. I enjoy seeing them. They've been a client on and off for 20 years, one of them. They now started coming to the house I'm speaking to you from during the summer, because it's on the ocean, a couple days, for two days, 2 nights. And how cool is that I get to know them as people, the same way my kids get to know me as a person. It really, it just makes things much more rewarding.
Much more human.
Yeah, but it's like, I'm here to protect people. I'm here to protect, comfort, guide. And that's like, what a gift in life.
Yeah.
Like, it's more than just a job.
100%. No, that's no, it's really cool. Sorry, I'm a little disarmed by the way that you answer questions, because it's just it's a powerful way of doing it, and I'm just kind of in awe. So no, it's really awesome. I'm gonna try and steer us onto the legal topics,
Yeah.
just because that is
Sorry,
what
I
we're
didn't
here
mean to
for.
take you off of that.
No, it's fine. I really appreciate the conversation. I don't even want to oversteer the conversation, but I want to make sure, again, I want to be
Yeah.
respectful of your time, Muriel. But so let me ask you a little bit. Let me just talk about your beginnings. What got you into law? Why are you an attorney? What got you into this? I know you started out at the SEC, and do you think that your legal career at the SEC, what drew you there? And I'm guessing that's what shaped where you've come. So tell me about your actual career trajectory. Did you
So,
always know you wanted to be an attorney?
no, I never knew I wanted to be a lawyer. Personally, I would have rather been born a wealthy person and nobody knew who I was, and let me figure life out at my own pace. But the struggle to earn a living, there's something romantic about it. And I think about that when I drive in to Manhattan a couple days a week, and it's, the sun's has just risen. I honestly think about it that way, as if I were as if I were in my own movie about my life. But my parents are, for everybody in my family was not born in the United States, but for me. I'm the only person in my immediate family born in the United States. Could not be happier and more proud to be an American, and thankful to be an American. And there's no other country I'd want to live in. And I hope every person who is an American has that same appreciation for the gift we've been bestowed. I was told by my parents that I always spoke well. And so in part, I remember, well, my ex-wife, who I'm still close with, reminded me that she would hear because I met her when I was 19 and she was 18 in early days. And she told me that my parents would routinely tell me that I should become a lawyer. My parents offered to pay for my education. How could I turn down a free education going to law? Because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I'm in law school, and to give you a little bit more of my personality type, I didn't tell my parents this, but I worked 40 hours a week while I was in college. I wanted to earn spending money. So I was the guy that went to class like in cool sport jackets and slacks, and not in sweats or jeans, and all the people I went to college with make fun of me of that to this day. So I get to law school, and I started getting bored with education from about 8th grade till about my junior year in college. Law school was the first academic experience that I genuinely really enjoyed. I felt I was learning things that I'd actually be able to apply to my life as an adult. I had no preconceived idea of what it was going to be like going to law school or being a lawyer. I mean, I watched a little bit of LA Law that was out on TV at the time, but I didn't watch any of the other shows. So I was a blank slate when I got there, and I just found it really fascinating. I got my job through the SEC through an on-campus interview. I was one of 6 people hired, and the 6 of us were hired out of an applicant pool of 2,000. So it to me was like winning the lottery.
Yeah.
I get to the SEC. Of the 6 of us, I think one went into the broker dealer area of practice. A shout out to Bruce Newman, whose name I haven't said in 20 years.
Hi,
The
Bruce.
Yeah, hey Bruce, how's it going, buddy? Last I know, he was at Wilmer Hale as a partner. Most of the other people went to the general enforcement, and I was the only one put in what's called the 40 Act enforcement area. Prior to Madoff, that area didn't really get much attention, but it was the laws that govern the investment advisors and mutual funds and ETFs like investment companies. So being born into a family that gave me unconditional love and support, that was my first lottery ticket win. Being healthy, second lottery ticket win in my life. And I had plenty of them that I'm skipping past. Third one was getting a job with the SEC. When I got there, people were there in my mind for the right reasons. You were trying to help out the world. You're trying to do right. It wasn't about winning. It was about getting to the truth. And it was really, in my mind, the best way to shape a young mind and not just teach me law, but teach me values. So I'm hungry and greedy like most other people, but not to the point where I'm going to steal or lie or take advantage of anybody, because that goes against all my other core beliefs. So I get to the SEC, and that was the experience. And there's people I'm still very close with post my SEC days. It just attracted a lot of really good people. Now, it's also helpful that the accolade or those 3 letters next to my name also strengthened my resume. But when I look back at it, it was really more the culture that helped shape me as a lawyer. And I formed Sadis because necessity is the mother of invention. I did not like my jobs post the SEC. Well, I was at Price Waterhouse, but working at the other 2 law firms that I worked with made me question whether I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't like how I was treated. I didn't like how people spoke to one another. The culture, and maybe it's me, so I don't want to finger point, not because of the political component of it, but more because I'm not the victim, right? If I go back to that, but I really didn't appreciate the experience, and I'm sure I added to my experience. So I founded Sadis with 30,000 in business. I had 1 client. My twins back then were 6 months old, and their mother, who was working in the home and not out of the home, was not earning a living. And I might have had $10,000 in the bank and a mortgage. Talk about freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I didn't just take a shower before, my hair would probably be like this big right now. I mean, I was freaked out, and I was living in fear for a good 10 to 15 years. And that was my motivation. I wanted to provide for my family, and that was the driver. And I questioned whether I really fit into the practice of law, because up until I felt I did when I was at the SEC. I felt I did when I was at Price Waterhouse, but post that, I questioned whether I did. And now in retrospect, no, I really enjoy being where it goes back to, I like helping people. I like protecting people. I find being responsive is really important because it irritates me to no end when I reach out to people. Like yesterday, I even sent emails around tied to, I was listening to the Will Smith audiobook, and probably like any other entrepreneur, no matter what I experience, it always comes back to, oh, I can use that with my life. I should do that. Like I went to Disney when my kids were young. I'm like, how do I learn? What do I learn from this experience that can improve my business? How do I make people feel more welcome when they come to our offices? So I went out and bought like nice china for coffee so that they could have it. Things of that nature. So Will Smith started talking about how he started promoting movies,
Mhm.
and he went to Planet Hollywood and asked how to become a movie star and what do you take. Anyway, but I want to do all these crossovers like Pitbull does with lawyers all over the world because my ambition now is to become not for the fame itself. I'm not sure what I'll do with it if I can accomplish this, but I like to become one of the most famous lawyers in the world
Mhm.
because I want to change. I want to improve the world that you and I live in.
Yeah.
And
It's a
the,
leverage point. Fame is leverage, and it can be used for self-destruction. It can be used for ill, but it can be used to change the world for good.
but
That's
funny part
100%.
is, I don't want the fame for the sake of fame itself because
Yeah.
it's strange to because I speak publicly quite a bit,
Mhm.
and I've been in the industry. The longer you're in any industry, I'm not the only one. A lot of people start knowing who you are, but you don't know who they are, and I feel awkward even if I've met somebody and I don't remember them. I feel embarrassed that it's my failure because they're a person and I don't want them to feel judged or less than who they are. Now, granted, they're in control and they are responsible for their own emotion, but I want to be better at everything I do. So anyway, it's not for I'd rather, like I said, on some level, I'd rather be invisible if the world were a better place. And I think the world's an amazing place. But the things that are occurring right now, I want to have a hand in changing. And look, as a Jew in America, I never felt anti-Semitism. And
Mhm.
my family's from Israel. My father fought the Israeli underground, and I was raised to believe there are good Jews and bad Jews, or good Arabs and bad Arabs. So I'm not walking around looking at the world in a binary way, black and white, that if you're this, you're that. It's you're a person first. Let's get past all these bullshit stereotypes. And on October 8th, for the first time in my life, I started to take a position publicly, despite the fear of being canceled, despite the fear of being ridiculed or mocked. Canceled was more the bigger fear, despite the risk of physical violence and intimidation, not because I want to, but because I feel it is my obligation to speak up. And and it's not just for Jews. It's for Christians, it's for Muslims, it's for everything in between.
Did
So
that have an effect on your business in any way, positive or negative?
I think surprisingly positive. Like it so blew my mind. And funny enough, I feel like places I go, it's not Jewish people that are thanking me, it's Christians, it's other Muslims. I mean, I'm just really surprised at some of the reaction. We had one guy because I commented on the New York Times retraction. They wrote something. It was in my mind clearly wrong. Many people felt it was clearly wrong. They did a retraction on a much in an innocuous no distribution area. So I
Mhm.
wrote about it, and somebody canceled an interview with our litigation practice because so I was really curious how my partners would react, and they were like, you know what, it's actually anything. They sort of complimented. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad we now know the personality type. But no, it's. I've always expressed my emotion in that way. So yeah, I definitely know I am not like everybody to my left and to my right. I know that. And so when you ask what differentiates us, and when you ask me what defines me, it's having heart. I'm
Mhm.
not having heart because I think I'm God's gift. Now I have a plenty of it. I've no less insecurities than you do, right? I fight body dysmorphia. I'm turning 60, so there's a fear of aging. As I'm turning 60, I look around my relationships and say, is this where I want to be in life? And do I have the meaningful friendships that I've always hoped to have? Because my communities have changed by virtue of the divorce. But I'm going to share because that's how I connect with people. To me, that's the best gift in life is connecting with another person. And it's not socioeconomic. It's I like the cultural differences 'cause to me that's an empowering thing because I can learn from you and you can learn from me and we can take the best of both.
Mhm.
So anyway, I know I've strayed a little from the question at hand.
It's all right. This is a good conversation and good things to talk about. I love it. So let me ask you, this is a super, super important, very serious question. I need you to really focus on this one, okay? You've mentioned LA Law, you've mentioned Legally Blonde. Who's your favorite fictional attorney?
That
if
is,
you have one. It could be in literature. It could be
yeah, I'm trying to think of my favorite fictional.
My Cousin Vinny or Atticus Finch
First of
or
all, my cousin Vinny, awesome movie, um, with Joe Pesci. I can watch it over and over and over. It makes me crack up. Um, no, it makes me triggers me back to the Will Smith audiobook where they talk about the elements that make a successful character that increases the potential for success of a movie. It's the hero, right? It's somebody that really stands up to the world, and that not because they're crazy, but because of the courage and the strength and the conviction, despite the fear, right? Despite the fear is a really um, misunderstood thing. Because when I started speaking out publicly, somebody made a comment, well, you're like successful in your career and you don't really have to worry. And, I'm sure you have enough money and can retire. I'm like, first, I went through a divorce. I had to reset my economic life. I am human. I am subject to judgment by the world. I have fear. No matter what I do, I have fear. But I am consciously not allowing fear to dictate my path. I love my ex-wife. Nothing matters more than my family. Um, she and I don't always see eye to eye on this, but I got divorced not because I wanted to get divorced. I got divorced because I didn't see a change in something that was really important to me. And I'm not blaming her because it was as much me as it was her. And I did not have the same appreciation for things then that I do now. But so despite the fear, I felt it was a necessity for me to continue on the path of self-discovery and trying. And really, at that point, I did not understand all my drivers for happiness. So it's a mix of regret to some degree too, but I can't say that I would change it. I wish I knew then what I know now, but like I said, I still cannot say that I would change it. So favorite lawyer, you know what, you made it easy for me there. So thank you for the lifeline. If I'm on if I'm on any show and I need a lifeline, I might keep you on my list here.
there you go.
I'm gonna go with my cousin Vinny.
Awesome. You know what? That's a solid one. So let me ask you a little bit more about your actual area of expertise. When a fund manager comes to you early on, maybe before things go wrong, what are the biggest issues that you're helping them to avoid? What are the pitfalls that they need to be aware of? What are the things that they should be asking, and what are the things that you help them navigate?
Well, so the practice of law to me encompasses two ideologies. One is the law itself, and the second is the business specific to the client situation. And so it's very relevant to apply business, cost, risk to the application of law. Law is one variable in the decision tree of your client. So first, it's clarifying what the law is and giving them a glide path and assessing not only their immediate needs, but also midterm and long-term vision, because you might architect something differently depending what their goals are. Then we apply the business aspects. How much money are you launching with? So I'll give you by way of example, I'll simplify it. If the situation legally is ideal for the creation of two products, one for example for taxable US investors and one for tax exempt or non-US persons, and maybe they have a little bit of each, that's law in its ideal form. Now we need to apply the real world, going back to like Rodney Dangerfield in, it wasn't Old School, it was that other movie, and he's making fun of the guy about how you have to grease these people. He's applying the real world thing. But we sit there and say, what are the total assets you're going to start with? The cost to launch is fairly fixed within a certain range, but it's your ongoing fees may not justify launching both products because your cash burn, given the amount of assets, really puts you behind the eight ball. So it's law is a variable. It's a risk metric on some level. And it shouldn't be concluded in every situation in isolation. Some situations it is, like where you might, if you do something that's a violation of law and you're potentially subject to a crime, to me, that's a very bright line test. You just don't do it no matter. Although I say that, and I know one of your questions is about client experiences. I remember learning early on from a client of ours when we first founded Sadis, who he's probably my age now to when I was 30. And and funny enough, 30 years ago, they were starting a cybersecurity business. They were very way ahead of their time. But he had started a business where it was a tax shelter. And he's telling me, as we're having a casual conversation, he got fined $1 million. So I'm like, well, I guess you'll never do that. He goes, no. He goes, I do it every day of the week. I mean, what do you mean? Because, well, we made 5 million. So even though I got fined $1 million, net, I was better served. So it's having the business acumen to understand the risks and whether, and the downside with law, especially, you probably hear this from the people you're interviewing, it's getting worse and worse with the commoditization of various services. Now, in particular, due to AI, it was always there. It was always there because people always have choices. So there's a few things going on in the private fund sector. So when I first started the firm, the industry was going through growth. And like every other industry, went from growth to hyper growth to now consolidation and commoditization. So we're in the commoditization. So that in and of itself is being applied to the sector, in my mind, private equity, venture capital, hedge, and it's hitting other industries as well. While at the same time, so that means you have non-lawyers providing these services. You have solo practitioners that are providing these services, and everybody and people bigger. And the consumer doesn't really understand to a great degree how to hire the right lawyer for them. So my partners and I might say it's a value decision. Mm-hmm. Value is different than cost. So if you're going on cost, if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Or the idea being, we have a tax partner, we have an ERISA partner, we have a regulatory partner, we have all of the relevant services under one roof. So we approach things holistically, and they are involved at the outset. Now add in this new component of AI, and there's just an article I read that says AI is wrong 47% of the time, and it wasn't just limited to ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. But people think they're experts. They go in, the information is only as good as the question, and even then, it's not always right, the response. And there's nuances, right? Very few things are black and white. It's often shades of gray. So what AI is missing is called this nice word called judgment or perspective. So when clients come in, some of them, we'll start with the prospective client. Some of them will narrow the field down to 2 or 3 law firms. And usually when they do that, the other 2 firms are capable, and we'll have our own personality. But other people, they're just like throwing fishing lines out there, and I don't know how many people they're speaking to. And they don't, and maybe they will have a good experience. So I'm not saying it's always a bad experience, but you don't know. You know what they say, you don't know who's got their trunks off until the tide pulls out. And so not until things go wrong will most of these people know whether they really got what they think they paid for. But it's also like, there's no one answer on any of our clients' questions. I can approach it in 2 or 3 ways, and we game out each of the paths and the pros and cons with each of the paths. Whether it's a manager is having issues with evaluations and liquidity, and people want to withdraw money from the vehicle, and they're stuck with illiquid assets. There could be a regulatory issue, investors threatening to sue, the manager providing misinformation unknowingly, the service providers that they engage in that could be very good that make mistakes because it's an imperfect world. How one goes about raising money and staying within the confines of the law, because if you raise money in connection with the sale of a security, on average, you need to be registered with a broker dealer. Crypto, right? Think about it the last few years, since 2009, well, 17 years, not the last few. Is crypto a security or not? What do I have to do? And when crypto first came out, there's a division on the types of people that were in the game, so to speak. One term of art was called TradFi, meaning traditional finance. People that were from the traditional asset management industry were considered TradFi, sort of like they, it wasn't age-based, but at least with the impression of like some old person that's removed from reality, and this is like a young person's game. But the young person's game, they were completely doing things in clear violation of law on so many levels, and they didn't have like risk controls and other practical skill sets that people learn through the traditional practice of managing money. So nothing's in a vacuum here. And so that's the biggest challenge is, I'll ask questions. Where are your investor monies coming from? Which bucket? U.S. taxable, tax exempt, or non-U.S. person? What are you investing or trading in? Is it a commodity, right? That might trigger the manager having to register with the NFA as a commodity pool operator. What the amount of assets you have that might trigger registration with the state or the government. It's also federal government. It's also going to where are you physically located, because each state has their own body of law. So what I do is governed by a minimum of about 8 different bodies of law. So good luck when you're popping these questions in a chat GPT, because these laws sometimes have inconsistencies that are through no action letters or other instruments or edicts put out by the SEC. It is very much, in my mind, the person needs at least 10 years as a lawyer to really start to get how everything fits in with one another and to get perspective. I mean, I've been doing this for 35 years. And then it's also gauging the client. Like, not every client's the same. So some clients can be all over the place and other clients have everything in a row. And so you'll advise them similarly on law, but people they might engage as third parties. You might recommend different people to protect them from themselves. So it's not a one size fits all necessarily.
That makes sense. When a regulator gets involved, the SEC, the FINRA, CFTC, what do they misunderstand about how serious those situations are? How do you keep them off the third rail?
Right. So they're every day I have an alert set on Google for storylines involving a certain subject. So one of them was a research firm, and it's talking about how the main principal, who apparently was making money in a way that wasn't fully disclosed, gets a call. I think he called actually the head of the investigation, spends an hour on the phone with them on his own without a lawyer. And I believe it was a taped call where that is, yeah, exactly. You're making the face. And he's in litigation right now with the government. And it's not about what they originally examined for. It was because of his confessions on this 1 hour long call. It's hubris. It is ego. First, you receive something, shut up, say very little, get informed and educated. That's step one. I would do the same thing even as a lawyer in this field if I were running my own firm, because I have blind spots. The littlest thing can become the biggest thing. Just be smart about it. Consult with counsel that understands you, and they will come up with a game plan on how to deal with this. Your biggest risk if you're in the private fund sector, this applies, by the way, what the first one probably applies to every business, is a fight with your partners. Your operating agreement or your written agreement that governs your relationship is never going to be detailed enough to cover every permutation to what goes on in real life. And that will be a living, breathing document. But your biggest risk are your partners. Second biggest risk are your employees. Third biggest risk could be your customers. Right? Well, it's the same way to the private funds. And then your fourth might be regulators, and your fifth counterparties, other companies you do business with. So, and so your investors was number 3 in my book right there, right? Partners, employees, and then investors. So managers, often before they hire lawyers, they're communicating with prospective investors, not realizing that that can come back to haunt them. It's governed by law. Its words have multiple meaning. And if you're not doing it in an organized manner, you might have inconsistencies with the information you're putting out in the marketplace, whether it's a marketing piece compared to your text or your WhatsApp messages or your emails. And now you're giving the perspective, you're giving your future investor potential put option where they can come back and sue you if you don't make them whole. And I've seen that over and over again.
Speaking of put options, you were quoted not that long ago discussing the future of short selling. Why do you think that's such a controversial topic?
So it's really interesting. People view that as anti-American. It's a check and balance on the system. You're motivating people to look for companies that are way overvalued, and it's not normally overvalued because AI is great. A short seller might be there's an issue specifically with that company, that issuer, and they're highlighting things because they've done the research. So one of my friends figured out Enron before Enron was public, and because of how the society is, I don't want to necessarily say law, he was hesitant to go to the SEC and wanted me to be the go-between because he did not want the press contacting him. Yeah, he didn't want the blowback. Some of them provide a valuable service. It's like the 60 minutes of the financial services industry. They sit there and they're sleuths and looking for a clue because there's a way to monetize it. Like I'm friendly with Harry Markopolos, the Madoff tipper. That guy's making a living by looking for these problem children that are in the marketplace. He's serving a valuable role. And if it's just, so to me, it seems to be there are very, very few short sellers that I'm aware of in the marketplace. But they did and do provide, provided that they're not manipulating the marketplace. And I'm going to describe most short sellers as not doing that. I'm not going to describe the criminals, like the people that steal money that claim they're launching a hedge fund as a hedge fund manager. That's just not it. So those that are complying by the law and they're fully disclosing their relationship with the company that they're writing about or taking a position on, they're providing a valuable service.
Gotcha. I have to take a time out and ask a perfunctory question. I know you had a hard out. Can you remind me, was that at 3:30 or was that at 4?
Now I'm going to have to turn my phone and everybody's going to see me in a little picture there. My hard out is in 13 minutes.
All right. That's right.
But I have been really enjoying this conversation.
I have as well. And I get you're a natural conversationalist. I love having a conversation with someone. My job is just to facilitate you talking at the end of the day. And you make my job stupidly easy. So
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
But you know what? You have a gift more than that. So it's not that you're just starting the conversation. You're a mirror to me. And I can tell by how I'm communicating the effect it has on you, thereby helping me feel more comfortable, hoping that it'll have the same effect on the people that are listening.
Absolutely. Well, let me jump over really quickly. Let me just show your site. I'm not going to worry about our secondary sponsors in this particular call, but I do want to give your law firm a shout out again. I am obviously talking with Ron Geffner. He is one of the founding partners at Sadis. And Sadis is, if you're launching, managing, or advising an investment fund, if you need guidance around SEC compliance, private funds, broker-dealer issues, financial service regulations, Ron, his team, clearly seem like they're very, very much worth knowing. And I think you can tell just by the conversation that Ron has a heck of a sharp head on his shoulders. So as always, we'll have a link down below in the description, sadis.com.
And thank you for the kind words.
Sadis.com.
By the way, we also do represent a lot of family offices as well. So like maybe it was 9-10 months ago, we represented somebody making an allocation of $500 million.
That's not a small
in one tranche. Yeah, so you're negotiating privacy because the person does not want anybody to know where the money's coming from. Not because they're doing something illegal, but they have to worry about their safety. They have to worry about being inundated by other people wanting to speak to them. So it really, the other thing is we also I get a lot of calls from people that have been victimized. And while the economics don't justify our involvement, and I'm not asking everybody who has been victimized to reach out to me because there's only so many people I can help in that regard because it's free. It's um, it's unfortunate. Like I said, it goes back to empathy. And if you don't understand what you're investing in, then don't invest. And if you don't understand it, but you think, or you think whatever the investment is, but you don't know how to diligence it, don't wing it. Get somebody to help you. So that part's like the sad part. Like I get those calls from not necessarily widows and orphans, but it sounds pretty close to that. And I will take the call, and people are surprised I take the call for half an hour, but you can hear the heartbreak.
Somebody
And
at rock bottom functionally sometimes. As
yeah,
close as I've
and
ever
and it's
been.
amazing that they can't and they don't feel heard. And like I said, I can't hear everybody because I have my own realities of life and my own limitations. But we do represent investors, and we do negotiate on behalf of um, investors, and we have a very active M&A practice. We help people that are either selling their companies or that are buying companies. So, and our litigation team, really, I feel like they're one of the best in the country. They do such a great job. And by the way, we've also worked with whistleblowers. So
I was actually going to bring that up, but we're getting close to the end of the hour. But it sounds like you have the know-how to protect people who want to blow the whistle and don't know how to do it. When you're talking about your friend and Enron and everything else, so I was kind of getting there, but I didn't know. I
yeah,
there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so many hours in the conversation. It can only go in so many directions. But no, that makes perfect sense.
yeah,
Well, let me.
there's somebody that went to jail indirectly who you would know that everybody on this, if you've been in the news, reading the news the last several years, that was tied to. I'd received a call from somebody I met that was a wealthy family that allocated money to someone. And every time I called, they would give me a new lawyer. And every time I called that lawyer, they would fire the client after one phone call. I mean, not because I was freaking them out, or no, maybe I freaked them out, but I wasn't threatening them. I think my background might have scared them. And ended up being he was committing fraud and he went to jail, and um, he's not a good person.
Rough. Well, Ron, let me ask you just a couple of my closing questions so I can get out of your hair and let you get on with your life. But I really have appreciated this call. Um, those closing questions I gave you before and to percolate on a little bit. Question number one is just it's always the same, but I always want to know if you could change one thing about your practice right now, snap of a finger, wave of a wand, what would you change about Sadis Goldberg?
It's a great question. And if I really think like the the thing I am proud of the most and I enjoy the most is the people I work with. They care. They really care. Even when they have reason to not care, they care. So it's really hard. While we live in an imperfect world and every business has strengths and weaknesses and things can be improved upon. When you ask me that question, my head goes to the people that I work with and I'm thankful to have in my life, from my assistant, Allison Alexander, which is interesting that I put her first, but she definitely helps make my life easier and enables me to leverage myself. And she shows up every day and hustles every day and is great at what she does. My partners, Jeff Goldberg, Doug Hirsch, Paul Marino, Yehuda Braunstein, Sam Lieberman, Elena Maltzer, David Fitzgerald, Erica Winkler, uh, Seth Leibowitz. I mean, it just goes on and on. I'm not even, I like to name every one of the people. It's, um, what would I change? Truthfully, while we're working on always improving the business, I guess I appreciate the journey. So it's just, you know, I'd want people to be able to communicate in a constructive, non-threatening manner and have empathy for one another. but that would be my wish for
Humanity.
humanity and everybody in my life. But beside that, like Mark Streffling, our partner that you're just passing on, is probably the smartest lawyer I've ever met. Frank, who you just passed, the guy's got a lot of heart in litigation, just an overall great guy. Cameron just started about a year plus ago, maybe a year and a half ago. Just smart. Jen Rosin, think the world of her, who's in our litigation practice. Like these are people I really care about, and I want to provide. I want to have a hand in providing them the best opportunity they can and the best glide path to grow. And I hope more days than not, I lead by example.
Amen to that for all of us. Well, let me ask you one other closing question here. And this is my favorite question because it always lets me just have a peek into your mind and the things that move you. If I gave you, this is my magical pencil. It's a Bic number 2, and there's only this much graphite left in it. It's almost out, but it's magical graphite. And with this graphite, you can strike a law from the books. You can edit a law that's on the books, or you can add a new one. If I gave you my magical pencil and you could make one little change, what would you change in the law? What's one law that you would strike, add, edit, remove?
Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking about my daughters, not that I think it will be something that they ever need, and I'm thinking about women and women's rights. But I believe in pro-choice, and so I believe every woman should have the right to decide what she does with her life and her body. And I think it's not our place to stand in the way of that.
So something like re-enshrining Roe v. Wade or something akin to
Yeah,
that?
but doing it in a way where we don't have to worry that the Supreme Court's going to go change it, or give people the sense of safety and security.
That's you're not the first attorney that's made that exact decision on that question. Usually they stay in the wheelhouse, but my question is for you. It's an open-ended question, so there you go.
Yeah, mine's
Well,
more
Ron,
societal, as you can tell. A lot of my
yeah,
responses are
you
societal.
seem to be very societally minded, and I do respect that about you. Well, Ron, I really do appreciate your time today. I want to get out of your hair because I know you've got somewhere to be in a few minutes here. Any last parting words of wisdom or thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with today?
First, I'd like to tell you that you're actually you have a lot to be proud of. You really do. You have a really wonderful demeanor, and you're providing a value to society by virtue of the questions you ask and putting yourself out there. And I want to thank you for the opportunity, because
My pleasure.
I do have the fortune of going on a bunch of podcasts, and I really think this was one of the conversations I enjoyed the most. And two, that any of you, if you want to accomplish something, you can accomplish something. The only thing stopping you is you. And if I can ever help anybody in a professional capacity as a lawyer, and we provide those services that can help you, please, we welcome the opportunity to work with you.
That's awesome. Well, Ron, as always, again, thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. This has been The Attorney Post. I've been chatting with attorney Ron Geffner. He is in New York City. He is one of the brains behind Sadis, Sadis Goldberg. You can find them online at sadis.com. As always, we will have links down below in the description. As always, though we do talk about a lot of legal issues on this podcast does not constitute legal advice. And if you have a legal issue, you should always seek the advice of a competent attorney in your area who focuses on the matters that you need help with. However, if you have an SEC issue, if you have a fund issue, whatever it happens to be, I think Ron has an amazing head on his shoulders and will be a great resource. So I would definitely point you towards sadis.com. As far as the podcast goes, if you're listening on YouTube, we always appreciate a like, a subscribe, and a share. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you learned something new today. If you're on any other podcast repositories, please feel free to give us a rating or review. But the most important thing you can do to help us grow this podcast is simply this. If you know someone who would benefit from the information contained in this podcast, please share it with them, because at the end of the day, as our tagline says, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Until next time, I'm Justin West, your humble host. Thank you guys very much for listening. Thank you very much, Ron, for being with me today.